There are some differences between these two tablets that I bet you didn't know about. Right now, Apple's impressive 12.9-inch iPad Pro and Samsung's powerhouse, the Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra, are arguably the two best flagship tablets in the world. So here's how you choose. Now, starting out, these are the biggest tablets that Apple and Samsung make. But a fundamental difference is that you can get essentially all the features that are in the Tab S9 Ultra in one of Samsung's smaller tablets. Whereas with the iPad Pro, you can't even get this type of display, even with the 11-inch model. So right off the bat, if you're after a feature set instead of a particular size, you have more options with Samsung. And I'll talk more about the quality of the display and the notch on the Tab S9 Ultra in just a minute. Now, from a design standpoint, both tablets have flat edges and rounded corners, but the Tab S9 Ultra has slightly smaller bezels, which could be good or bad. It does maximize the footprint, but it also means that you're more likely to inadvertently activate the touchscreen with the inside of your thumb, which does happen to me when I'm gaming. It really comes down to whether you use a case and what type of case. It would be cool if you could install GoodNotes Edge Lock, just like you can with Samsung phones. Now, both tablets have 4 speakers, and these are the 2 best sounding tablets that I've ever used. If you use the speakers on your tablet for media consumption or to game on, you'll be super happy with both. And if you force me to choose one, I'd probably give the slight edge to the Tab S9 Ultra. The sound is a bit fuller and warmer. Both tablets have USB-C ports for charging and connecting accessories. The one on the Tab S9 Ultra is 3.2. The one on the iPad Pro is a more powerful Thunderbolt 4 port, which has faster transfer speeds. Now, if you're not really transferring a lot of files to and from your tablet, this isn't really much of an advantage for you, but if you regularly work with a large number of photo or video files, then you'll definitely appreciate the faster transfer speeds on the iPad Pro. Now, in terms of durability, both have been pretty solid, and I haven't had any issues with bending, even with the thinner and larger Tab S9 Ultra. I also like the fact that both the Tab S9 Ultra and the S Pen, which I'll talk about in just a minute, have an IP68 rating, so I know I have protection from water and dust. Now, one final advantage of the Tab S9 Ultra is that it has a micro SD card slot, so I can relatively inexpensively expand the internal storage by up to 1 terabyte. It also means that if it's not in the budget right now, I can just buy the tablet and then pay for additional storage when I need it, and I can use this storage for files, for photos, for videos, and for most apps. Now, we continue to see differences when we look at biometric authentication, where the iPad uses Face ID and the Tab S9 Ultra offers a great under-display fingerprint sensor and then a less secure face recognition option. All 3 work great for me, so it really comes down to whether you want the more secure facial biometric option on the iPad or the versatility of multiple options with the Tab S9 Ultra. Now let's get to one of the main reasons why you'd choose one of these, the display. The iPad has a 12.9-inch Liquid Retina XDR display with a resolution of 2048 by 2732, an aspect ratio of 4:3, 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, and a pixel density of 265 pixels per inch. The Tab S9 Ultra has a larger 14.6-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a resolution of 1848 by 2960, a 16:10 aspect ratio, 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate, and 239 pixels per inch. Now, obviously, both displays are amazing, right? Like, these are the biggest and best displays that each company has in a tablet. So which one is better? Well, it actually depends. Now, having used both quite a bit, I like the display on the Tab S9 Ultra a little better. It's bright, it's very colorful, and the dynamic AMOLED 2X display has very dark blacks, which in turn create a more punchy image with excellent contrast. Now, when you're watching movies or videos, the aspect ratio of 16:10 on the Tab S9 Ultra is closer to the content. And on top of that, the display itself is actually larger, so you end up getting a much bigger image with smaller black bars on the top and the bottom. And if you go ahead and stretch to fill the image on both screens, then there's a much smaller crop on the Tab S9 Ultra. If you're using these tablets in portrait mode, you can see more content on the Tab S9 Ultra without having to scroll. And as far as width, they're about the same, so you're not really being penalized with a narrower device when you're taking handwritten notes. Both tablets are pretty bright, but the iPad does have a higher peak brightness for HDR content with 1600 nits versus 900 $230 on the Tab S9 Ultra. Now, one quick note, the Tab S9 Ultra does have a small notch on the long edge, and personally I'm not bothered by it at all, just like it doesn't bother me with the MacBook Pro. But if that's something that's going to bother you, then I would go ahead and look at the smaller Tab S9 Plus. Now, it's really hard to go wrong here, again, because both of these displays are incredible. But if I had to choose one, I would go with the Tab S9 Ultra. It's larger, has fantastic image quality, and the aspect ratio is better suited for watching videos. Now, if you draw or write on your iPad and you want to improve your experience, you should check out the Pro Bundle from today's sponsor, Paperlike. It comes with this thing, which is an absolute game changer. So first of all, we're talking about Paperlike 2.1. This is their newest version, which in addition to giving you that feeling and precision you get when using paper, it's also more transparent. So Paperlike is doing this by using a new composite and better nanodot distribution. Nanodots are the small microbeads that are spread across the surface of the screen protector. That's what gives you that feedback of friction or resistance and lets you write or draw in a more natural way. What's super important here is the composite that's being used and the accuracy of the distribution. It makes the product thin and more transparent, so the image on your iPad doesn't look cloudy. The Pro Bundle also includes 2 charcoal-colored Paperlike Apple Pencil grips for better comfort and precision. They work with the first and second generation Apple Pencils, and they're compatible with double tap gesture and magnetic charging. And then you get this all-in-one cleaning kit, which is a microfiber spray bottle that safely removes dust, grime, and skin oils, and it's safe for all your electronic devices, not just your iPad. So get the Paperlike Pro Bundle today by clicking the link in the description, and thank you to Paperlike for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now, another super important aspect when choosing a tablet is the ability to expand the functionality by adding a keyboard case and a stylus, and there's some super important differences here. Looking at the keyboard options, the iPad Pro is compatible with Apple's Magic Keyboard and also some excellent third-party options. The Tab S9 Ultra is compatible with 2 different versions of the book cover keyboard from Samsung, and of course you can always use an external Bluetooth keyboard with both tablets. Now, personally, I prefer the feel of the keys on the Magic Keyboard, and the trackpad is definitely better. It also has a USB-C pass-through, so you can charge the iPad while still being able to connect accessories. The Tab S9 Ultra keyboards do a better job at securing the S Pen, so it doesn't fall off when it's in my bag, and there's a full row of function keys. Now, moving on to the stylus options. The iPad Pro is compatible with the second generation Apple Pencil. It pairs wirelessly, it can be stored and charged on the side of the iPad, and it costs $130. The Tab S9 Ultra comes with a free S Pen, which also pairs wirelessly. It can be stored on the side or the back of the Tab S9 Ultra, but it will only charge on the back. You're able to assign a function to the button on the S Pen, which is similar to the double tap functionality on the Apple Pencil, but the S Pen also has several Bluetooth functions, so you can use it to take pictures, control media playback, and for several other useful tasks. Now, the S Pen doesn't need to be charged in order to write or draw. It just needs it for the Bluetooth functions, whereas the Apple Pencil does need to be charged in order to work at all. Now, practically speaking, this isn't really a meaningful difference to me because the Apple Pencil is always charging while it's being stored, and the battery lasts forever, but it's still something that I wanted to mention. Now, in both cases, latency is extremely low, but the actual writing experience is quite different. The Apple Pencil has a firm tip, so it's a little harsher when it hits the glass, and it feels like you're writing on a single sheet of paper that's placed on a hard surface. Now, the S Pen has a softer tip, so when it hits the glass, it gives a little, and it feels more like you're writing on a full pad of paper where the pages compress as you press down. Now, one isn't objectively better than the other for every single use, and it's really going to come down to which one feels better for you, so hopefully this description was helpful. Now, both tablets also have some excellent multitasking capabilities. With the iPad Pro, you can have 2 apps open side by side in split view, you can have slide over windows, and you can have a pop-up window in the center. The Tab S9 Ultra allows you to have 3 apps open at the same time. You can resize each window to get the configuration that works best for you, and you can have pop-over windows. Now, both tablets can also be used as a second display for your laptop or desktop. Apple calls this feature Sidecar, and Samsung calls it Second Screen. An important advantage of the Tab S9 Ultra is that you can boot it in DeX mode, which gives you a desktop-like user interface with a taskbar, desktop icons, and floating window. You can even pair a keyboard, mouse, and an external monitor for an extremely powerful dual display setup. Now, Apple did release Stage Manager for the iPad Pro, and it means that you can finally connect an external display without black bars on the left and the right. You can also extend your desktop to the external display and move apps and windows to it for a true dual display setup. It's great to see that Apple continues to expand the functionalities of the iPad. I love how fluid and seamless multitasking is, and at the same time, the Tab S9 Ultra has a larger display. You can have 3 apps tiled at the same time, and it has DeX, so it's still the more capable option when it comes to multitasking. Now, where things shift back in favor of the iPad is when we start looking at apps and long-term support. Now, there are lots of apps in the Galaxy Store, the Google Play Store, and the Apple Store, so the majority of users are easily going to find exactly what they need. Now, some creative-specific apps like Affinity Photo and Procreate are only available for the iPad, so if you absolutely need those 2 apps, go ahead and get the iPad Pro. LumaFusion, which has historically been an iPad-only app, is now available for Android, which is great news. And at the same time, you can now use Final Cut Pro on the iPad. And Notability, again, is only available for the iPad, but GoodNotes has an Android version, and Samsung Notes is actually an outstanding option, and it comes included with the Tab S9 Ultra. Overall, I definitely give the edge to the iPad Pro because essentially every app is optimized for a tablet, whereas with the Tab S9 Ultra, a lot of the apps are stretched out versions of the phone apps, which look kind of strange on such a large tablet. As far as operating system support, Apple has always provided excellent long-term support. And while Samsung now offers 4 years of OS updates and 5 years of security updates, Apple still has the edge here if that's a priority for you. Looking at the camera systems, the iPad has an ultra-wide 12-megapixel front-facing camera, and the Tab S9 Ultra has a 12-megapixel wide and a 12-megapixel ultra-wide. The iPad Pro can record it up to 1080p 60, and the Tab S9 Ultra can go up to 4K 60, and here's a quick sample. Here's a camera and microphone test of the 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Ultra. This should give you a pretty good idea of the type of image quality that you're going to get and the type of audio quality that you should expect. But for video calls, I preferred the placement of the camera on the Tab S9 Ultra because it's in the center of the long edge, so I'm always properly framed and it appears as if I'm looking at the person that I'm talking to. On the iPad Pro, because the camera is on the short edge, when I'm watching the screen, the camera is to my left and it looks like I'm looking away from the person that I'm talking to. Moving on to the rear-facing camera modules, the Tab S9 Ultra has a 13-megapixel wide and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, versus a 12-megapixel wide and a 10-megapixel ultra-wide on the iPad Pro. Now, both tablets have a flash, but the iPad Pro also has a LiDAR scanner, which is great for autofocus and low light and for augmented reality apps. As far as configuration options, the iPad Pro comes with the M2 chip, and every model up to 512 gigs of storage comes with 8 gigs of RAM, and the 1 and 2 terabyte models come with 16 gigs of RAM. The Tab S9 Ultra comes with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. The 256 and 512 gigabyte models come with 12 gigs of RAM, and the 1 terabyte model comes with 16 gigs of RAM. Now let's quickly look at benchmarks for those of you who are interested. And since the M2 is the most powerful chip in any tablet, it's no surprise that the iPad Pro comes out ahead for single-core performance, and the gap increases even more for multi-core performance and GPU performance. Now, when we look at battery life, the new Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip significantly improved the battery life on Samsung tablets. Now, how much screen time you actually get from your tablet is always going to depend on what you do. For me, both have worked great, but the Tab S9 Ultra has lasted me longer during a typical day of use. Now, one of the areas where battery life will be important is gaming. In terms of processing power, both tablets played games like PUBG, COD Mobile, and Genshin Impact without any problem. Now playing PUBG, I could go to 90 FPS on both tablets with graphics set to smooth, or all the way to Ultra HD for graphics and Ultra for frame rate. And in terms of gaming performance, I'm going to give the edge to the iPad Pro here because it has additional headroom in terms of performance and it will continue to perform better for longer. Now, depending on how you hold your tablet, this was one of the areas where the Tab S9 Ultra could be a little bit too big and less comfortable to hold. If you play games with the tablet flat on a desk or on a pillow, then the Tab S9 Ultra is awesome and I love the bigger display. When I want to play cloud-based games, I just pair my Xbox controller with both tablets, then I can play any game that's available with the Xbox Game Pass app. In that context, I'm primarily using the tablet as a display, and I prefer the larger Tab S9 Ultra. Now, looking at configuration options and pricing, we see some super important differences. I'm going to use the prices off of the Apple and Samsung stores because they're standardized, but you can usually find better prices by using the links in the description. The iPad Pro starts at $1099 and the Tab S9 Ultra at $1199. But the iPad Pro starts out with 128 gigabytes of storage versus 256 on the Tab S9 Ultra. And right now, using the links in the description, you can get 512 gigabytes of storage on the Tab S9 Ultra for the same price. And that would cost you $1399 on the iPad Pro. If you need the most storage, the iPad Pro goes all the way up to 2 terabytes, whereas the Tab S9 Ultra maxes out at 1 terabyte. But you can use the micro SD card slot to add an additional terabyte. Also remember that if you want a stylus, the S Pen is included with the price of the Tab S9 Ultra, and the second generation Apple Pencil is going to cost you $130. Now you should check out this comparison. Hopefully this video was helpful. Click on my face to subscribe. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.